Hello everybody, it's Mr. Moore again. We are looking at finding probability today. Now finding probability, this particular video is just going to be a very simple, quick intro to exactly what probability is, what it means, how we actually calculate it for a simple event. Okay? Now as it says here in the slide, the sample space is going to be a set of all possible outcomes of an event. That's what we're always going to compare and use probability to find. So I will be comparing favorable outcomes to the total possible outcomes, also known as my sample space. So again, a sample space can be small, such as 2 outcomes when a coin is flipped. It can either be heads or tails. That's 2 different outcomes, okay? So your favorable outcome, say if I were looking for heads, would be 1 out of 2. So I'm only looking for, my favorable outcome would be heads, and the possible outcomes are 2, of course, heads or tails. Or a sample space can be large, such as a possible number of Texas Classic automobile license plates. Now, that could be your sample space. Now, within that sample space, say, if I wanted to find the number of favorable outcomes being, say, license plates that started with the letter D, okay? Favorable outcomes would be all of those license plates that start with the letter D. All possible outcomes would be all of the license plates in Texas. That's a simple sample space. Now, identifying a sample space can help you calculate the probability of an event. I'm going to say that that is the key to finding a proper probability, is finding what your sample space is. So that's going to be integral to actually finding that. Now, as I notice here in the purple box in the middle, again, we have our shorthand P. In the parentheses, we would put the event or name of the event. It could be P event, it could be PE, it could be P heads for the probability of finding all of the times that heads would be flipped, okay? That's going to be, again, the number of times that an event occurs, also known as your favorable outcome, over the total number of equally likely possible outcomes, okay? So as you see here on the screen, this is going to be 7.6a. Now 7.6a specifically talks about looking at lists and tree diagrams. I'm going to focus this video more so on finding the probability of a simple event. So again, what is the probability of rolling an even number on a standard number cube, okay? So I want to go ahead and go to my work at this point. So we're going to actually look individually as to how we would construct that probability. All right, so I'm going to say that step number 1, if I flip over to my work, step number 1 is going to be where I would identify my sample space. Okay. I think that step number 2 would be to find the number, and I'm going to abbreviate that, of favorable outcomes. And then step number 3 would be where you find the probability in ratio form, okay? Now, the caveat, the warning that I want to give is that this may be presented in decimal or percent form, okay? So it may be presented as either one of those things, okay? So if we go back to the original problem, which I'll start here at the bottom, okay? Now it's saying that we want the probability of rolling an even number on a standard number cube, So I want to go back over to my work. We want to first identify, okay, what is our sample space? I'm going to abbreviate this as S1. What is our sample space if we go back here to the top? Our sample space on a number cube is going to be what? How many sides are there to a number cube? There are 6. So I could either roll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, giving me 6 possibilities. Sample space, that's what the SS is, of 6. Okay, so my sample space is going to be 6. Excuse me. So, number 2, step 2, says I want to identify the possible number of favorable outcomes. How many favorable outcomes would there be if I wanted to roll an even number there? Okay, so again, a favorable outcome would be 2, would be 4, or would be 6. So favorable outcomes we've identified as 3 different things. So 3 favorable outcomes in that case, and that number would be 3. Now, I want to put that all together. So when I put that all together, again, favorable, sharpen my pencil, favorable outcomes over my sample space will equal 3 over 6. That's going to simplify using common factors to 1/2. Now what does that equal? If you are having a hard time converting between decimals, fractions, and percents, go to my video on fractions, decimal, percents. Okay, this would equal to 0.50. If I were to divide 1 divided by 2, it's going to give me that. I then can convert that to a 50% possibility. Okay. Now, this video is going to be super simple. There's really not that much left to explain to this. Now, the only thing that, of course, will change is your sample space. The other thing that will change will be the possible number of favorable outcomes. You'll need to make sure that you read the problem very carefully to make sure that you're identifying that. Simplify your ratio. You can then convert to a fraction, you can convert your fraction to a decimal, which can then be converted to a percentage. Okay. Simple. So please make sure if you have any additional questions, please try to back up this video, watch it again. If that does not work, please come to one of my tutorials twice a week. Or you may also just ask me in class if you have a simple question about the video or anything about probability. And as always, I will see you tomorrow in class.